Hi, this is Anita Dean. This card was put together using the golden green, a season of golden green suite, and I thought it was so charming, I wanted to share it. And I realized when I was putting together, there are a few little tricks I wanted to point out as we create the card. In the kit I put together, we have, of course, the card base, which is 5.5 by 8.5, and it is scored at 4.25. So you have your standard card base. Then we have designer series paper, and we have a layer. The layer is 5.25 by 4, and the DSP is 5 by 3 3/4. And then we have a strip of designer series paper, which is 1 inch by 3 3/4, and that'll go there. Now, when I started putting this together, I also wanted to include the inside sheet, which will be talked about a little bit later, and I also included instructions. Now, the way this is put together is fairly straightforward, but there's a few little hints ahead. Now, I had these bells I fussy cut out of the designer series paper, and the same with these leaves with the little berries with them, and we'll be using those on the front of the card. These two were die cut out of the designer series paper, also being used in the front of the card. This is a tag which we'll be using for the sentiment, and that came from Greetings of the Seasons dies, and there they are. And I chose this one right here. And then this is another die cut that comes in the set, and this also was cut from the paper. We'll be using this for the inside layer piece. Now, what I did is I just took it step by step, and I wanted to show you that. Getting started, let's work on the sentiments or the stamping first. Now, I can't stamp for you in a kit. I'm just showing you the sentiments that I chose and how I applied them. Because of the colors in the designer series paper, I chose Mossy Meadow as my ink, and I chose the sentiment Season's Greetings. I'm going to ink that up. I'm also going to bring out my pad so that when I stamp this, because this is not a padded stamp, this is the clear stamp that we're working with, the photopolymer. I'm going to stamp this, but I'm going to stamp it off to the right. The reason being, when we assemble the card, it's going to have this part covered over with the foliage. And then the other one, that's stamped now. The other one, I used my Stamparatus, which is a tool that Stampin' Up used to carry. Unfortunately, they don't have it currently, but if you can get yourself a positioning tool, I highly recommend getting one. Now, my Stamparatus is set up so that, now let's get these sticking. Let's even it up. So that I already have my sentiment lined up and straightened out. And I'm using the stamped version to figure out my placement, I want it kind of centered. And I'm putting the magnets there to hold it. All right. And then I'm going to bring this over so you can see. I'm going to take my stamp pad, Mossy Meadow, and I'm going to apply it to the stamp. Now, one of the benefits of having the Stamparatus, if for some reason the first time you stamp it's too pale, you can ink it up and stamp exactly in the same position a second time. And I think I like that to go a little bit more. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. All right. And there we are. Okay, I'm going to take this and set it aside for a little bit later and move this out of the way. Now, the way I started this is I started with the Designer Series paper and the strip, and I'm going to put some glue. Now, I use the liquid Tombow glue mostly because I don't always get it in the exact spot I want it the first time out. So I use this because it gives me some time to adjust my position. I'm putting the strip along the bottom, and I'm making sure that it lines up exactly on the bottom. And let's see, a little bit over this way, a little bit. There we go, we're good. All right, I make sure that it's all nice and lined up. And then I would give it a few moments to get the glue to set, and then I can move on to the next part, which happens to be gluing this piece to the layer, the Mossy Meadow layer. Now, again, I'm using the Tombow. Other people can use the tape runners and things like that. I just happen to generally prefer the liquid glue, except in certain circumstances. Now I'm going to get this positioned, and the light is giving me a shadow, so I'm going to focus on one side, get close to what I want, and then I will examine it and even it up as needed. There we go. Now sometimes I'll go ahead and put a weight on it. This is just a tile, and I've used it for weighting things down before, and just let the ink set for a minute. I always put my ink pad away for safety because accidents happen, and it would be really quick to get some ink on places that you didn't want. Now remember, I had stamped the sentiment off to the right, and it's going to be going right here, and the placement, this fuzzy cut bit with the leaves and the berries, I'm going to have off to the side like that, and the branches, I'm just kind of laying out where I think I want them to be. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm actually covering over the whole of this actual tag, and then I'll be putting the bells kind of in the center to cover over the joining. So, liking the way that is, I now know which direction I want to go. Now, for the sentiment, I'm not going to pop it up on dimensionals. I am going to simply glue it down flat, because when I add the others, you'll be getting the dimensions. Enough dimension that you don't really need to add more. You know what? I'm just going to, okay, and this one, I'm pretty sure about my positioning. So I'm just going to add some tape runner to hold it in place. There. And basically, I'm lining it up even with this edge and then pressing it down. Then I'm going to add the dimensionals. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put dimensionals on the parts reaching out. But when it comes to the center, I'm just going to use glue because it's going to get pretty thick there. So that's what I'll do. Now, I actually have two sizes of dimensionals. I have the standard larger size, and then I have these mini dimensionals, if you can see. All right, so I'm going to take a few of the minis, because these are smaller leaves, towards the edges of the leaf and berry group. Okay, and then on this part, I'm going to add a bit of glue. Doesn't need to be much because you'll have other things on top of it to help hold it down. Then I will simply remove the covering, the protective covering, so it's not sticky until you're ready for it to be sticky. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to position it where I want it and then press it down. That's one. Now, the way I approached this is I wanted to have this down kind of along the line. I didn't want to cover over my greeting, but I wanted it to kind of curve out like that. I'm going to do a similar thing. I'm going to put dimensionals on the ends and then glue on the bottom here. So in this case, these are a little larger, so I can use a larger dimensionals. I'll just put one there. One there. And one there. And then add the glue again. Now, I will note one thing here. When you die cut from the paper also has parts that go off the edge of the paper, and there aren't that many whole ones. And what I did was I took parts and I pieced them together, which shows here where the lines are going different directions because they were different directions on the paper. But I lined them up, and it lines up so well that unless I showed it to you, you might not even see that at all. Just a way of getting more out of your paper. Okay. Okay, I'm going to remove the protective covering again. Now, the protective covering certainly is an important thing, but these little pieces have a way of, I guess with static electricity, finding themselves places where they really shouldn't be. All right, I'm lining this up about like that. I want to turn it a little bit up there because I don't want to cover up my sentiment. Okay, and this is dimensionals, bringing the edges up, but this is flat. I'm going to do the same with this piece, again with the dimensionals. There we go. And then with glue. All right, and so I'm bringing this in, and I want to bring it close to, but not covering, the sentiment, which is why we stamped it off to the side. And next come the bells. Now remember, we put dimensionals on the outer edges. This part is still relatively flat, but no longer, because I'm going to be putting the bells there, and I'm going to pop them up a bit. So one more. And then, now, there are bells on the designer series paper that are set to be die cut. You know, they have dies for them. But in this case, I was using the double bells because I wanted the extra width. Oh, I'm going to show you another tool I use. This is called a reverse tweezer, and it helps me with my positioning because it holds it for me so I can stop and look and see, is that where I want it to be? And then I can put it down. Boom. All right, so now we can go ahead and I put my embellishments in Post-it notes, and they almost hold it too securely sometimes, so it's hard to reach. Oh, we're playing games here. There we go. Now, when these guys are being sneaky on you, this is where the take a pick tool comes in handy. Helps you place it where you want it. It's already got adhesive on the back side. So all you do is grab it and put it where you want it. And there you are. Okay, now that's the front of the card. We're going to add that to the card base in a moment. But right now, I'm going to work on the inside. This paper is so pretty. And what I did is I cut a die cut, basically. And I cut it carefully so I can use 2 pieces of it. There we go. 1 piece. And here's where the holder comes in handy again. I can hold this for me, and I can apply the glue. Now, I'm careful not to put too much glue because sometimes I have to adjust it a little bit, and I really don't want the glue seeping out. And then I'm putting this in the corner. All right. And we're going to do a similar thing here. I have to clean it up a little bit because we cut that 1 piece off. And I'm going to take this and bring this out. This is called fussy cutting when you're cutting the design out. Okay. Let's see, that needs a little trimming there too. There we go. All right, now I'm going to be putting that there. I'm going to grab it here, add the glue. All right. And then add it to the corner. Now we have our decorated inside piece, and I'm going to go ahead and put that on the inside. Again, I'm adding the glue. If I get too big of a lump of glue, I will often take this and kind of spread it out a little bit because we really don't want it to seep out. All right, and then I'm going to turn this in. I'm going to balance it inside of the card base. Again, I'm using two edges, the bottom and the side, to get the general placement. But you notice when I put the glue, I left some leeway along the edge. That's so that I can move this around slightly and not have smears of glue where I don't want them. Okay, almost there. All right, we got it. All right, good. Now we're going to do the top. Another simple application. And then we're going to put it, I'm going to stand up again, put it right on, kind of lining it up with two edges to start with. And then once I have it down, I will look at it and adjust it so it's even on all the sides. Now I'm going to let this hold for a few minutes, just to let the glue do a good grab. And then we'll be ready to go. And you have a lovely Christmas card to send friends and family. So, I hope you enjoyed this little demonstration. The tips that I was most concerned about is that when you stamp your sentiment, and you be choosing whatever sentiment you want, you stamp your sentiment off to the right so you have room for this little foliage display. And the fact that I put dimensionals on the outer edges, but I left the center flat until I came to the bells, and then I put dimensionals. And then I also used the die cut piece with the leaves to add decoration to the inside. Again, you be choosing the sentiments that you want to use. I hope you enjoy this. Thanks.